Most people think the hardest part of endometriosis is the pain, but there is something far more dangerous that rarely gets talked about, and that is what this disease does to the brain. Not emotionally, not psychologically, biochemically. There is a critical symptom of endometriosis and adenomyosis that often goes unrecognized, and when it is ignored, it can have devastating consequences. In severe cases, it can push someone into deep depression, anxiety, and even unaliving ideation. And this has nothing to do with being weak or unable to cope. It has everything to do with chemistry. What most people don't realize is that endometriosis doesn't just affect the pelvis. It alters how estrogen behaves in the body, and estrogen is one of the most powerful regulators of the brain. Not pain, not stress, estrogen signaling. Women with endometriosis experience abnormal estrogen spikes during their cycle. These spikes are not gentle. They are sharp, aggressive, and often followed by rapid drops in key brain chemicals responsible for mood stability, motivation, and emotional regulation. This is why so many women with endometriosis experience symptoms that look exactly like PMDD: sudden depression, anxiety that feels unprovoked, emotional volatility, a sense of dread that seems to come out of nowhere. You are not imagining this. Estrogen doesn't just influence reproductive tissue. It directly affects cognition, memory, neurodevelopment, and neuroplasticity. In other words, estrogen changes how your brain functions, how it learns, and how it adapts. Too much estrogen can create a heavy, gloomy mental state. Too little can make thoughts erratic and disorganized. Rapid shifts between the two are especially destabilizing. To put this into perspective, people in other communities have seen this same effect. In the fitness world, when steroid-using bodybuilders mismanage estrogen levels, their mental health can crash rapidly. Mood instability, depression, even unaliving thoughts can appear suddenly. When estrogen is corrected, their mental state often normalizes just as quickly. Women with endometriosis experience this type of hormonal turbulence not occasionally, but cyclically, every month. And while large studies haven't definitively proven that blood estrogen is always elevated in endometriosis, the underlying mechanisms make this pattern biologically plausible, especially at the tissue and signaling level. Your body knows something is wrong even if you haven't been told. This is why comfort foods suddenly feel necessary. Sugar, chocolate, carbs. These foods temporarily increase dopamine and serotonin, giving your brain relief during hormonal chaos. That craving is not a lack of willpower. It is your nervous system trying to survive.
Now here is where the science gets deeper. Estrogen is not a single hormone. It exists in multiple forms: estrone, estradiol, estriol, and estetrol. During reproductive years, estradiol is the dominant form, and it has a strong affinity for estrogen receptors throughout the body.
Estrogen production is controlled by a set of genes and enzymes. In healthy endometrial tissue, some of these genes are silenced. In endometriosis and adenomyosis, they are not. One of the most important of these is SF1, a gene that drives estrogen synthesis. In endometriotic tissue, SF1 is not just active, it is massively overexpressed, thousands of times higher than normal. When SF1 is active, it turns on a whole estrogen manufacturing assembly line. It allows cells to make estrogen locally, from cholesterol, right inside the tissue. These cells essentially become estrogen factories. And estrogen is small, extremely small, small enough to cross the blood-brain barrier easily. That means even if the brain itself is not producing estrogen abnormally, it is still being flooded with estrogenic signals from the rest of the body. The brain is not protected from this. In fact, the brain is loaded with estrogen receptors. They exist in the hippocampus, which controls memory, the amygdala, which governs fear and emotional processing, the hypothalamus, which regulates hormones, stress, and energy balance, the cortex, which handles thinking and decision-making. Estrogen is also produced locally in the brain by neurons and support cells. And here's a critical detail. There are two main nuclear estrogen receptors, ER-alpha and ER-beta.
ER-beta is heavily involved in anxiety, fear, learning, memory, coordination, and movement. In endometriosis, ER-beta is dramatically overexpressed in lesions. And even under normal conditions, the brain already has more ER-beta than ER-alpha. So when estradiol spikes, ER-beta signaling dominates.
This helps explain why coordination can worsen during flares, why clumsiness increases, why learning new things suddenly feels harder, why focus disappears. Estrogen doesn't just affect mood, it changes how memories are retrieved.
High estradiol levels shift the brain toward place-based memory. Low estradiol favors habit-based memory. Endometriosis causes repeated, dramatic swings between these states. The result is cognitive instability. Memory retrieval becomes disorganized. Learning new skills requires far more repetition. Brain fog becomes persistent.
This is not laziness. This is not anxiety. This is not psychological weakness. This is estrogen-driven neural reprogramming. And because these estrogen spikes are cyclic, the brain is repeatedly overstimulated, then withdrawn, then overstimulated again. Over time, this can reshape neural circuits. It can sensitize emotional pathways. It can amplify stress responses. In advanced disease, this process may not fully reset between cycles, leading to chronic depression or anxiety. Again, this does not mean you are broken. It means your nervous system is under biochemical siege. This is why PMDD is so common in endometriosis. This is why mental health symptoms are real, biological, and deserving of medical recognition. Endometriosis is not just a pelvic disease. It is a multi-systems problem. And until that is acknowledged, women will continue to be told that what they are experiencing is just in their head. It isn't. It is happening in their brain. And understanding that is the first step toward real relief.